Hello, and welcome to my workshop on AWS Quick Starts with Armory Enterprise. What is an AWS Quick Start, you might ask? Well, it's an automated gold standard deployment in the AWS cloud, and that's what we've crafted at Armory. We crafted an automated gold standard Spinnaker deployment in the AWS cloud. And who am I? I'm Thomas McGonagle. I'm a cloud partner solutions architect. And if you want to learn more about me, you can go to Linktree/McGonagle. And I have my LinkedIn if you want to become LinkedIn buddies. And I have my my own personal README. It's all about myself and who I am and what it's like to work with me up on my Linktree. I invite you to check that out. So just to set the stage, I wanted to talk about the three industrial revolutions, and the first one was the steam engine, and the steam engine enabled the creation of big factory towns. And as you can see, the bottom of it is Lowell Mills, and Lowell is a place in Massachusetts. I'm based out of Massachusetts, actually quite close to Lowell. And Lowell is this old city with like hundreds of mills, these huge monstrous mills, and what powered these mills was water power and steam engine power. And that was the first industrial revolution. And then the second industrial revolution was automation in the assembly line. And the assembly line brought reliability, and the need for automation and standardized tooling brought together what we're talking about today. It's automation and tooling. And automation and tooling enabled the second industrial revolution. And this is this picture is of a factory churning out B-24 bombers. And during during World War II, these B-24 bombers enabled air power to help win the World War II. And these B-24 were made up of 450,000 parts with 360,000 rivets and 550 sizes, and weighed 18 tons. And the assembly line standardized all these parts and all these rivets and all of these components into this one cohesive product. And I'll be getting back to the B-24 in just a couple minutes, but I wanted to just introduce the assembly line as a second industrial revolution. And then the third industrial revolution is software, and modern software development practices, and modern software development and delivery. And what makes CD the third industrial revolution? Well, it's tools and automation. And that's what we're talking about for the remainder of this workshop. We're talking about the tools and automation that the Quick Start provides, and the cloud formation that it utilizes, and the infrastructure as code that it provides and creates and makes. So automation tooling is how you tame complexity. So that's just something that's just going to keep coming up and up and up throughout the rest of this workshop. Is automation and tooling is how you tame complexity, and that's what we're trying to do with the Quick Start. We're trying to have this Quick Start environment to provision Armory Enterprise in as speedy and fast as a way as possible with best practices infrastructure in AWS. And so I just wanted to just mention that the B-24 automation story is an important one to me. My grandfather was a bombardier captain, and he flew over 54 combat missions in the Termite. This is a picture of him from World War II. And the chance of surviving 54 combat missions is 1%. And so thanks to the automation and the assembly line and the work that was done in the factories in Michigan that were churning out the B-24s, my grandfather survived, and I'm here to tell this story today. And my grandfather was highly decorated. He actually got the Distinguished Flying Cross because he landed without landing gear, and that was once again thanks to the workmanship and the incredible craftsmanship of the factory workers churning out the B-24. So AWS Quick Starts, just to recap, what are they? They're instead of rather manually configuring all the components of a solution, customers can simply deploy a Quick Start, which uses infrastructure as code to automate the deployment. So we're using CloudFormation as the infrastructure as code to automate the deployment of a Armory enterprise distribution. And so what is the Armory Quick Start? Well, the Quick Start helps you deploy popular technologies on AWS based on AWS best practices for security and high availability. These accelerators reduce hundreds of manual procedures into just a few steps so that you can build your production environment in minutes and start using it immediately. So it's this quick start. It's this start to using the Armory Enterprise distribution in this very, very fast, very, very quick manner. Each quick start includes AWS CloudFormation templates that automate the deployment and a guide that describes the architecture and provides deployment instructions. Quick starts give customers an easy way to deploy complex software and services on top of AWS infrastructure and automation. The quick start process. This is the process that we work with our partners at AWS. We show them our idea of distributing Armory Armory Enterprise as a quick start. We answered a few simple questions, and then we went through the development process of engineering the CloudFormation with our partners at AWS. And then we are launching today the quick start infrastructure so that it's available to the entire Spinnaker Summit audience, so that they can start using the quick start and can contribute to the quick start and can assist us with it and can create something really, really grand. So when you guys might remember that slide that I had earlier about complexity and how automation and tooling is how you tame complexity. Well, just to clarify and dig into it, the AWS Armory Quick Start is a rather complex infrastructure. What we are doing is we are using a VPC, a virtual private cloud, and the VPC is made up of 3 availability zones. It has elastic IPs, and it has NAT gateways and NAT instances, and it has internet gateways, and it has public subnets and private subnets. And this infrastructure is all captured because we're able to reuse the VPC Quick Start in our Quick Start. So as part of our Quick Start, we're launching the VPC Quick Start. Similarly, there's an EKS component, and so we're running our Armory Enterprise Quick Start inside of an EKS infrastructure, an EKS cluster, and that EKS cluster is provisioned very, very similarly to the VPC. So the VPC gets provisioned first, and the EKS cluster with its bastion hosts and its NAT gateways and its 3 availability zones and its Kubernetes infrastructure get provisioned on top of the VPC. And then there's Aurora. We have an Aurora database for backend persistence, and this Aurora has a bastion host. It has Aurora instances and so forth that we're provisioning. And then we have Spinnaker. Spinnaker's microservice architecture sits inside the EKS cluster, and we're provisioning this EKS cluster on top of, we're provisioning Spinnaker on top of this EKS cluster, which sits on top of the VPC, which utilizes Aurora. So there's a tremendous amount of complexity in this infrastructure. And then this is a diagram from our documents, and this is the complete infrastructure. This is the complete solution. This is the VPC with the 3 availability zones, the bastion host, the Kubernetes cluster, our Armory operator. We are using the Armory operator to install into the EKS cluster, and so on. And so I keep mentioning this CloudFormation. For anyone who's not familiar with it, it's an easy way to create and manage a collection of AWS resources. It allows orderly and predictable provisioning and updating of resources. It allows you to version control your AWS infrastructure. It allows you to deploy and update stacks using console, command line, or API, and you only pay for the resources you create. And so just to summarize, you can provision using CloudFormation using the AWS console. You can provision using the command line, or you can provision using an API. We can version control our AWS infrastructure. We can have a version 1 of Spinnaker. We can have a version 2 of Armory Enterprise. We can have a version 3 and so forth. We have orderly and predictable provisioning and updating of resources. I mentioned that the VPC, the EKS sits on top of the VPC, and Spinnaker sits on top of the EKS, and that functionality is provided via the CloudFormation and so forth. And so what are some of the benefits of CloudFormation? Well, it allows you to automate best practices. It allows you to scale your infrastructure worldwide. It allows you to integrate with other AWS services. It allows you to manage third-party and private resources. It allows you to extend CloudFormation within the community. It's released as open source. And so that's a critical feature, is that you could take our CloudFormation and our quick start and extend it for your purposes. And it provides a step-by-step deployment guide. It is, and I'll be digging into that a little bit later, but it's documented. It's documentation. The CloudFormation, because of its infrastructure as code basis, allows you to document and specify the infrastructure as a deployment guide. It's self-documenting, in other words. This is one of my favorite examples of Amazon's EKS Quick Start. This is a AWS QS Kubernetes resource definition. And then as you read from top to bottom, there's a properties, there's a cluster name. This is the cluster name of the EKS cluster. We have a namespace where we're defining it default. We have a manifest definition. And in this manifest definition, we're defining a config map. And so this is something that we use heavily in our quick start. We use the Amazon AWS QS Kubernetes resource, which provisions Kubernetes resources into an EKS cluster, and you define it in your CloudFormation. And so you actually can manipulate the EKS cluster, and you can install things like a config map, like namespace, like a and so forth, pods, and you can define the Spinnaker or the Armory operator, and you can do all these different things via this AWS QS Kubernetes resource. And this is my second favorite one. This is the AWS QS Kubernetes Helm resource. And this allows you to define Helm resources and run Helm charts against your EKS cluster using just this CloudFormation defined template. And it's very, very powerful. You can package up your software into Helm charts, and then you can run them and install them into an infrastructure, into an EKS infrastructure in an automated infrastructure as code way. So how does CloudFormation work? Well, you code your infrastructure from scratch with the CloudFormation template language in either YAML or JSON. You start from many available sample templates, and then you put your CloudFormation templates into an S3 bucket, and then you run CloudFormation. And once again, you can run it from the command line, from an API or from a console, and then you get output. And the output is the creation of, it's the formation of a cloud. You know, in our instance, we're creating a VPC, which creates an EKS cluster, which creates an Aurora database, which creates a Spinnaker instance. And so we're specifically crafting and creating a cloud using this CloudFormation technology. So I keep talking about the principles of infrastructure as code, but I just wanted to call these out. These are some of the principles of CloudFormation, and you get modularity. The services are small and simple. You get cooperation. So me and my colleagues were able to foster continuous improvement through the cooperation of the definition of these CloudFormation templates. You get composability. Services are like building blocks. And so we snap together the VPC and the EKS, and we snap together the other components all together into one big CloudFormation quick start. And that was done through the composability of CloudFormation. We get extensibility. We can modify, enhance, and improve. And that is one of our call to actions, is asking everyone here to consider testing and submitting pull requests to our CloudFormation quick start and improving it. We get flexibility, and it's declarative. We're declaring what we want the state of our cloud to be, what would the state of our Armory enterprise to be. And then it's abstract. We don't have to really worry about the implementation details. We're just working within the CloudFormation language, the YAML, the JSON, and defining these abstractions. And then CloudFormation takes control and generates all the different infrastructure. And once again, it's a VPC and an EKS cluster and an Aurora database and a Spinnaker installation, Armory Enterprise Spinnaker installation. And then we have idempotency. Action should only be taken once. And then finally, convergence. Over time, the system tends towards correctness. And so what are the benefits of this infrastructure as code, this automation? Well, it's repeatable. We can provision 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 of these EKS clusters with Spinnaker, with the Armory Enterprise Spinnaker installed on them. We get agility. We allow engineers to move forward or backwards. We can version control. We can move and we can have version infrastructure, and we can version control any aspect of the infrastructure. So we can do the VPC, or we can version control the EKS, or we can version control the Aurora, or whatever. We get scalability. Repeatability plus automation makes scalability. I'm just going to repeat that one again. I think this is my favorite one. Repeatability plus automation makes for scalability. We have this highly scalable, repeatable, automated infrastructure. And then once again, reassurance, documentation, the CloudFormation and the infrastructure as code CloudFormation technology allows for documentation of the infrastructure. We have the all the hundreds of components that make up the VPC and the EKS and the Aurora and the Armory Enterprise distribution are documented. And finally, we have disaster recovery. If we have a problem, we can spin up this infrastructure again and again and again, and we can configure it and install it in different environments and for different purposes, and have and have it in different availability zones and so on. So what is automation's impact? Well, it improves speed. We can deploy workloads faster. It creates predictability. We get reduced risk of human error. We get provide management. We have essentially governed disparate workloads. We have increased responsiveness. We can scale readily with demand. We can foster collaboration, communicate and collaborate better. So here's the call, one of the calls to action. How do we get involved? Well, you can contribute code. This is an open source project. This is an open source attempt at infrastructure as code to spin up Armory Enterprise. And you, as a participant in Spinnaker Summit, are welcome and encouraged to help out with this project and to participate as a member of the community. What are some of the best practices for quick starts? So if you do decide to help out with the quick start, you can read the contributors guide. You can use an IDE with linting. Visual Studio Code has a great, easy to install CloudFormation linter. There's a workshop that you can use. You can store all assets in the same repo. You can reuse existing submodules. You can divide components into templates. You can specify that all files and folders follow the same conventions in the GitHub repository. You can maintain the quick start through proactive updates. You can use the same names for parameters for the same names, and you can update the deployment guide. So what if you want to log in to and upgrade Spinnaker? Well, this is an example of the output section of our quick start. And as you can see, we have a Bastion IP address, we have a Bastion security group, we have an EKS cluster name, and we have a node group, security group, and then a Spinnaker, Armory Enterprise UI address. And what we can do with this is we can log into the Bastion host. We can connect up to the Bastion host using a key that we specify as part of the quick start. So a .pem file key, we can specify that and we can connect to it. And then what we can do is we can go into and download the Spinnaker customized patches from Armory, and we can edit the version of the patch version.yaml core config Spinnaker customized patches config file, and we can edit that, and we can configure the version to change it, and then we can run kubectl apply -k dot inside the Spinnaker customized patches directory, and then that would provision all of the microservices with a newer version of the Armory Enterprise distribution. And you are then free to configure and command and control your Spinnaker instance using the Bastion host, just like you would if you had provisioned this infrastructure, the EKS infrastructure, the VPCs, and the Aurora database, just like you would if you had provisioned it by hand. And so you have this Bastion host where you can then use our Spinnaker customized patches, config files to configure and command and control Spinnaker and Armory Enterprise. Once again, if you'd like to get involved, we highly, highly encourage you to get involved. The URL for the Armory Enterprise Quick Start is here down at the bottom. It's github.com/AWS Quick Start Armory Spinnaker. And we look forward to your participation, and we thank you for your time and your energy. And we wish you a very, very nice Spinnaker Summit. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching our workshop today. I do want to kick off the questions with a very very important and controversial question, and it is a hot dog a sandwich or a taco? And so if you in the Q&A, if you could start filling that in, if all the participants could fill that in, and while we're waiting for the answer to that very controversial question, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to my project partner in the Quick Start, Peter Blindstrubis. He's a gentleman, and he's just been a joy to work with, and a really wonderful person. And then I'm going to also thank our project partner at AWS, Andrew Gargan. He's also a gentleman and a tremendous asset to work with. But why is it so important to say thank you? I, at the beginning of this project, went through probably the biggest crisis of my life. My son was born 3 months premature, and we were able to get this project over the finish line through the help of Peter and through the help of Andrew. And I just am so indebted to them, and I just wanted to say thank you at the beginning while we're trying to figure out whether a hot dog is a sandwich or a taco. And so we have some answers coming in. We are seeing some answers around taco, and we're seeing some answers around gyros, which is a great answer, Stephen. Rachel believes it's a sandwich, but in all seriousness, I do have some other things to cover. I'm gonna let the answers to that controversial question keep coming in, and while I'm doing that, I'm gonna answer Vignek's question: is a caching solution the architecture, Redis, etc. So what we do as part of, and I did kind of gloss over it in the video, what we do is we spin up Aurora, and we spin up a Redis cache, and so you can make the decision to choose one of them and then deploy to one of them or both of them. If anyone's familiar with that design, where you use basically the Redis cache as tasks, and you use the MySQL Aurora database for everything else. And we try to be as prescriptive as possible, but as I mentioned at the end of the presentation, you can use the customized patches scripts to configure and manage the Spinnaker installation once it's stood up, and it's trivial, frankly. It's 10 minutes worth of work to set up. If you're very, very prescriptive about Redis, and you only want to use Redis, and you want to use Redis in cluster, you're more than welcome to do that. Or if you want to use Redis outside of the cluster and use the AWS Redis product, you can do that. Or you can use MySQL for everything, and you can use Aurora for everything. So we give you those options. We didn't feel comfortable at this stage to be as overly prescriptive as as we could have been, if that makes any sense. Does anyone have any other questions? That was a great question. Let's see if there's any chat. So 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 we're getting a lot of sandwiches. I tend to agree with the. I do believe it's a sandwich. It's a couple pieces. It's a piece of meat with some bread on either side. I do tend to kind of agree with that one. Or a gyro. Then um, Nate Reed corrected me. It's actually a gyro, and I call it a gyro. That's like a Northeast thing. I think Nate is based out of Michigan, and so that offended his, I guess, Greek ancestry maybe or something. And so, do we have any other questions and answers? If not, I'm going to cover some kind of housekeeping, and I'm going to keep an eye out. Oh, so here comes a question from Vinyek again. Is the horizontal pod scaling using HPA supported for Spinnaker pods? And so that's a great question, and my understanding um, is HPA is not supported for Spinnaker pods. Does anyone in the chat can someone in the chat confirm or deny that for me? And we'll all keep an eye on the chat. And then I'm going to jump into, and thank you for that question, Vinyek, again. I'm going to just quickly jump into some housekeeping. In addition to this talk, I'm giving a talk on something called compliance operations, comp ops, and that's on Thursday. That's a lightning talk. And then we have our birds of a feather, Spinnaker at scale. And we have AWS personnel that are going to be there. That's on Thursday, June 24th at 2:55 EDT. And then I did want to call everyone's attention to that we have a fireside chat with Jeff Barr and Cody Powell from Snap. And Jeff is from AWS. He's he's kind of a big shot. He's their chief evangelist. And then Cody's a big shot in his own right, and he's the senior infrastructure engineer manager at Snap, and we're gonna have this really outstanding conversation. To be perfectly blunt, I'm very excited about it. I'm gonna be asking them questions like, is DevOps dead? And I'm gonna be asking them questions like, if you could have a sandwich, what would it be? Stuff like that. Just very important uh, questions for our participants in our fireside chat, and that is on July 1st, and that's at 11 a.m. EDT. And then I'm just looking over my notes. We also have a workshop, an AWS workshop where you can do things like blue-green deployments and scale up and roll back. And we will be making that available. You'll have to come by our booth. That's the Armory booth. I'm wearing my Armory shirt. If anyone hasn't noticed, we have our Armory booth, and we have this slick sheet or this glossy, two-sided marketing slick sheet that we can hand out to you with other information on what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're working with AWS and all the kind of the cool things that we're doing. And I just wanted to say thank you very much. And then there is an anonymous question, and it's, are ALBs supported in Spinnaker? And they sure are. So we are leveraging EKS, and so you can use an ELB, you can use an ALB in the EKS cluster and wire that up to the EKS cluster. That's part of the kind of secret sauce that the Elastic Kubernetes service provides to you, is the ability to use I guess, how would you describe it? The load balancers from Amazon. And if you have any other follow-up questions, anonymous, please let us know. It's been a tremendous pleasure being here, everyone. And I think I just get cut off in like a minute. I'm not really sure what happens, so I'm just saying my goodbyes, and please, and I'll put in my my link tree again, so that if you want to get in touch with me, you're more than welcome to. I love making new friends, and I love people. And so if you want to become LinkedIn friends, please reach out to me, and we can have a conversation. I've already started having conversations with people on LinkedIn today. So please reach out, and we'd love to connect with you. And thank you very much for your time.